Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Kirsten and it's time for my TBR game. For those of you that don't know, my TBR game is actually very simple. I just roll a 6 coloured sided dice and I have to do this a minimum of 6 times, but if the same colour comes up twice, I need to re-roll. So it quickly gets out of hand with the amount of prompts that I have to fill, and I cannot double up on those prompts. Also, before we even start that game, I have to admit I have not finished my October TBR. Now, I am on the 25th of October, so I do technically have 6 days left to go, but I have 5 books to finish, and one of them is a chunker of a book. So the likelihood of me actually doing it is very slim. If, for whatever reason, I do manage to finish it, then I won't read whatever book this is in my punishment bag. Whenever I don't finish my TBR for the month, I have to choose one of these books at random. Now, these books are books that I've just been putting off for whatever reason, or I just really don't feel like reading, or I don't think I'm actually going to enjoy too much, but they're books on my TBR that I haven't actually got around to reading yet. So the first book for this month that I have to read, which I have to read first in the month to make sure I actually read it rather than just constantly pushing the book back, is going to be Cinder, which my handwriting's terrible, I know. Cinder by Marissa Meyer is a book that I have been putting off, and not because it's a retelling, because this is a Cinderella retelling, but because it's a sci-fi. And I really don't read much sci-fi, I'm just not that into it. But you've heard it here, this is going to be the first book that I need to read for the month of November. Now let's continue with the TBR game. Roll number 1. Purple. Over 500 pages. Roll number 1 started us off with a chunky book already, and that is to read a book over 500 pages. And for this I chose Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas. So for those of you that don't know, I am doing my Throne of Glass reread, which I tend to do every single year, but I am doing it slowly for once. Normally I binge read this series in a couple of weeks. I've actually taken my time, only letting myself read 1 or 2 of her books per month, and it's really helping me to actually differentiate between the different books now about the plots that's happening, because as I've been reading these, I've been thinking, oh, this is going to happen, and then realising it's not, it's in the next book. I'm loving this series. It's absolutely freaking amazing. If you don't know what it is about, I will be surprised. Sarah J Maas is one of the most hyped authors on BookTube and Bookstagram. It's just absolutely amazing. The series definitely gets better as it progresses, but they've all been 5-star reads, and I know this is going to be one as well. Roll number 2. Orange. Retelling. Roll number 2 is one of my favourite prompts, and that's retelling. And for this one, I've gone for one that's been sitting on my TBR for a while, and that's Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. This is technically a very, very loose retelling of Mulan, or at least that's the way I'm taking it, because our female main character is having to disguise herself as a male to go in her father's stead, and it's all to do with sewing and it's about clothes. And honestly, I think this is just going to be a light YA read with a bit of romance, some beautiful writing and imagery from all the clothes that we're going to be making. So I'm excited to give this one a try. Plus, the reason why I got this book is because of how gorgeous this cover actually is, and the second one is just as beautiful, so I really need to get this read to pick up the second one if I've enjoyed it. And I know Elizabeth Lim also has another book coming out different to this, because this is just a duology, but again, the cover artwork is stunning, so I think I'll be picking up her books just for how beautiful they look. So I'm really hoping I enjoy her writing as well. Roll number 3. Yellow. Standalone. Roll number 3 is a standalone, and how could I not pick up The Invisible Life of Addie by V.E. Schwab. V.E. Schwab is another very hyped author, and for good reason. I've enjoyed all of her fantasy books. I think they're really well done. I have started to collect some of her middle grade books, but I haven't actually read many of those yet. But this one is a standalone, I believe, or at least it hasn't been said that it's the start of a series, so I'm hoping this works for it. And it's about this woman called Addie who made a deal with the devil to live forever, but as a consequence of this, everyone she meets forgets her. And I know it's a story about loneliness, and it's very sad, and some people have cried, and yet I still want to read this because I do love V. Schwab's work, and I'm hoping that this will be the first 5-star read that I've had from her. Roll number 4. Blue. Under 500 pages. Okay, we've done roll number 4 and I haven't had a double yet. I don't know how to take this, but I think my game's being nice to me for once, and boy could I do with a month of less books because I've been struggling. Anyway, roll number 4 is to read a book less than 500 pages. And of course, I had to treat myself and give myself another reread, and that's The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. So this is technically the prequel, but I like to read it after reading the 3rd book in the series. That is when it came out, and I think it works with how the storyline goes, because if you know the books and what Selena starts telling a character about her past, that is this past. So I think it works really well reading it after the 3rd book. So after Hair of Fire, to then read Selena's backstory. And these are short stories from her past, and some of them are really heartbreaking, and it's just great. I know I'm going to enjoy it, so I had to put this one on there and treat myself. Roll number 5. Purple again. Read first in the series. My first re-roll. Orange. Again. A dark cover. Reroll again. Yellow. Again. Continue a series. Another reroll. Purple. Lowest rated on my TBR. Remember when I said my game was being nice to me? Yeah, I spoke too soon. I cannot believe the amount of rerolls I've got in this, so my small TBR is now going to be rather large again. But the first roll for roll number 5 was to read a first in a series, and for this I've chosen The Poppy War by R F Kuang. This is a book that my sister recommended and is on my 5-star predictions video, so I do need to get it read by the end of the year, and I'm excited for it. It is based on real events of a Japanese war that went on that doesn't get talked about in history, and it was very horrific. And we're following our main character who goes to this training school, and it kind of goes from there. I know it's a dark read. My sister says it's very fast paced but very dark, and she is definitely a morally grey character that we have in here. So I'm excited to give this one a try. As I said, I think it's going to be a 5-star read, so hopefully it does meet my expectations. Then the first reroll is to read a book with a dark cover, and I've gone for Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence. This is the 3rd book in the Holy Ancestor trilogy. I think it's called that. I know it's got Ancestor in the name. This is a trilogy that I've said I need to finish by the end of the year, so of course I'm trying to squeeze these ones onto my November and December TBRs, and it has got dark colours in it, so I think it sort of works. Plus it's my game, so I say it works. This is a book that I'm excited to get to, but I definitely need to do a recap of the trilogy. We're following our main character as she is taken in by these nuns who are also assassins, and she gets trained up to become one. And she also has to fulfill this prophecy of being a defender of the chosen one. It's a really good storyline. I do struggle with his writing a little bit, but I am intrigued by the story, and this one isn't actually that large. The first book is the biggest book out of the trilogy, which is quite surprising. Normally it's the other way around. But I'm excited to see how this wraps up, because we do have some betrayal that's just happened at the end of the 2nd book. So it'll be interesting to see how it finishes. Now my second reroll is to continue a series, and of course I had to fit on another one of the books that I'm trying to finish by the end of the year, and that's Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This is the 3rd in the Grishaverse trilogy, and this is a book I've been putting off since I read Siege and Storm. So I really enjoyed Shadow and Bone. We're in a Grisha world where there are people called Grishas, and they have different abilities, either control of the elements or can summon light or darkness. Elena is someone that can summon the light, which hasn't happened in many years. And in the first book she gets tricked into making things worse rather than better, and I really loved it. But the 2nd book was a bit of a letdown. It just felt very repetitive. I didn't like the love interest. I thought he was an absolute annoying character. So I don't know. I'm really on the fence about this trilogy, and I'm a bit concerned about this book, but I know people have said that they do enjoy it, so I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna finish this trilogy off. I did say I would, so this is me doing that. And the third reroll is the lowest rated on my TBR. So to do this, I put all my books into my Goodreads shelf of books I want to read, and then I put them in order of the lowest rated, and I choose a book that I actually own from that's the lowest rated. There was one other book, but that's actually on my October TBR, I just haven't read it yet. But the one left on there is Bunny by Awad. Now this is a book that I was umming and ahhing about getting because of the fact that I liked parts of the theories but not all of it, and the parts I didn't like were the bullying and the peer pressure, and I'm a little bit concerned that Bunny's going to have that in there as well because we are in a school setting. It's a dark academia book, and I know it's a little bit weird. Some people have said that it's a bit unusual, but I want to give it a try because I like dark academia. I just don't like the bullying that's involved in it, so fingers crossed there won't be too much of that in this. And yes, I know my descriptions of books are very brief, but I haven't read these yet, so I can't tell you too much about it. Roll number 6. Orange. Romance. And my final roll for roll number 6, which I was very happy that I didn't have another re-roll. You may have noticed a slight change to my game in that before, even if the same colour came up 3 times, I would roll again for that, but I've had to stop doing that because it just makes my TBR get out of hand, and I have been struggling to finish my TBRs, so I know that I can comfortably manage about 12 books, but any more than that is just a bit extreme. So I've changed my game slightly in the sense that if the same colour comes up twice, yes, I'll do a reroll. If it comes up more than twice, I'm not going to roll again for that because it just is never ending otherwise. So for this final roll, it is to read a romance. And for this, I'm actually going to be carrying over a book from my October TBR, which is Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I'm very sad that I haven't had a chance to get to this in my October TBR. Now that is partly because this is the very last book in a readathon that I'm taking part in that I need to read, and you have to read the books in order. But I also know I'm not going to get a chance to finish this in October. Like, that's not possible, and I still have The Damned on my TBR, and out of the two, I really want to read The Damned first. So I'm going to put that one onto my October TBR, make that the last book I read for the month, and move this one onto my November TBR because it's still a fantasy romance. I loved From Blood and Ash. It was a 5-star read. I really enjoyed it. We're following our main character called Poppy, who is a maiden and lives in the world of beings called Ascended. Now, the Ascension is very hush-hush. You don't know what it's actually about. All we know is that Poppy is the herald of a mass ascension that they haven't seen in a very long time. Now, being someone who is the maiden and is very revered, you would think they would treat her nicely. However, she is very poorly mistreated and is getting fed up with it. But along comes a guy called Hawk, who then makes her question things more, makes her push out against things more, and you start realizing the truth behind it all, and there is a vampire war going on as well. So I'm really excited to carry on with this book. I really have been reading it. It's just unfortunate I put it at the end of my October TBR, which wasn't the smartest move, but at least I will definitely be reading it in November now. So that's my November TBR, a bit more manageable at being 10 books this month, so fingers crossed I should get through all of those. I haven't mentioned any readathons, mainly because I haven't heard of any that are going on in November, plus honestly, I wouldn't mind having a month where I don't take part in one, unless of course one really takes my fancy and I can match it up with some of these books, in which case I'll do a separate video for that. But I'm actually looking forward to it. Majority of these books I think will be really good, strong reads, so hopefully it will be a good month. But do let me know what you're planning on reading in the month of November. If you're taking part of any readathons, let me know and I will definitely check them out and see if they interest me. But for now, as always, if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. All my social media links to my Instagram, Goodreads and Twitter will be linked below, and I'll catch you in the next one.